Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am so happy to have you back this week. This has been a very interesting month learning about self-compassion and trying to implement it into my daily life. I really hope that you have been listening, taking this to heart, maybe reading the journal posts and really just reflecting on, do you even practice self-compassion? Because I think as I have gone through this month and even leading up to it, I knew that I wasn't implementing self-compassion enough. And after the past couple weeks, it's very clear that I need to continuously work on it. So that means we're doing a good job. It means we're on the right topic. We have committed to the right cause and the right intention because it's clearly something that we need, something that I need, hopefully you need. I have been practicing self-compassion, and I know I've given you all a few examples over the past couple weeks, but one example that I'll share about this week, just because I think it's important to talk about the realities of life and all the highs and lows and our journey with growth, is I've been dealing with a very long migraine. I actually stopped counting how many days I've had it because it got to be a bit depressing just to think about how every morning I would do my, little body scan of, okay, I'm waking up, I'm checking in with myself, I'm kind of coming conscious to the world. And the first thought and the first awareness that I have is, oh my gosh, my head still hurts. And that's not how I want to start my day. And even as I'm saying this, it just feels hard to say that that's how I start a lot of days. And I have been starting a lot of days. And it's easy for me to, I guess, be upset with my body when this happens and not give myself compassion for going through what I'm going through and how that affects my day to day. And obviously living in pain, if any of you can relate, even just like having a cold. When you have a cold, it's exhausting, it is draining, it holds you back. And obviously having a migraine can do the same thing. And a lot of times I don't give myself compassion for not showing up 100% or not doing 110%, giving all of my effort because of the migraine. I actually get upset with myself that I've allowed this migraine to hold me back. I think that I need to do better, but I've really been working on perspective shifts, especially because of self-compassion. And one day this week that I was able to give myself a lot more grace and rest, I really leaned into that and actually surrendered myself into knowing that I cannot be 100% and that today, well, I guess technically that day, I really told myself, today you don't have to show up for everything. You have the ability to only do what's absolutely necessary and give yourself the rest. And so that's what I did. And it definitely helped me have less internal struggle with understanding the pain or understanding how I can go about my life to navigate the pain, but also get the things done that I want to. And so that was a pretty big act of self-compassion on my part and putting it into practice. And I hope that you are also learning these things because it is a journey and we're all in it together. And so that brings us to our last week of self-compassion. This is the last week that we're going to be diving into it. We have actually talked a lot about self-compassion, and I think the biggest thing for me that I have learned this past week, but one thing that I really want us all to focus on is having self-compassion on the daily. This is not something that we should be doing just occasionally when the season is right or when we can allow ourselves self-compassion, but it really needs to be a daily practice to, give ourselves kindness, understanding, and empathy. These are things that, again, we can often do for other people, but we rarely bring back into our own lives. When it comes to implementing self-compassion, it is a daily transformative journey. This is something, like I said, that there is no end, but it really is about fostering our emotional well-being, our resilience, and our positive mindset. So much of self-love and self-care comes back to that positive mindset, and it is something that we do have to work on because it's easy to slip up and just not feel aligned in a positive mental space. So when it comes to self-compassion as a daily practice, similar to like how you would have your morning routine or maybe stretches or just eating meals, like daily things that you do that hopefully become second nature, that's what we're aiming for when it comes to self-compassion. You want to make sure that it's a habit and it's a part of the foundation for a fulfilling and balanced life. Again, back to how you would prioritize a morning routine, a skincare routine, stretches, anything that has really benefited you. You want to look at self-compassion as another aspect of that. So it starts with mindful awareness, starting a moment, at least beginning with a moment of being aware, acknowledging your feelings, your thoughts, and any inner judgments or non-judgmental thoughts you may have, but accepting all of those and ideally taking those judgmental thoughts and reshifting the narrative into non-judgmental thoughts. So like I said, how I usually start my day is sort of like with a body scan and check-in. That's a great time for me to do that body scan and check-in, but then follow it with self-compassion. So checking in with my feelings, my thoughts, and maybe those judgmental thoughts I have about not showing up enough because of a migraine or pain that I'm in, and rewiring them and retelling that story of what those thoughts are. Another great way to do this is with daily affirmations. If you haven't practiced daily affirmations, I highly recommend it. It can truly be a huge change in your mindset and just how you view the world in general. So integrate positive self-affirmations into your routine. So speaking kind words to yourself, affirming your worth, your capabilities, and your strengths. So this one can be done in so many different ways. Some people like to do this when they're writing their morning pages. They can write out all these different affirmations. One thing that has been really impactful for me, and I actually talked about in my TED Talk, is speaking these affirmations to myself in the mirror and holding that eye contact, because that's how we normally would do it with someone else. We would give them words of affirmation by vocalizing aloud what those words are, those compliments and kindness. And we don't do it to ourselves. And sometimes if you're just thinking it or writing it down, it doesn't feel as, at least personally, it doesn't feel as deeply connected. But when I'm speaking to myself in the mirror and I'm holding my eye contact, it really does feel like someone else or like a higher version of myself is telling me these affirmations that I'm more likely to believe. And that could even be a way you look at it, is you create this almost like alter ego of who you are. That's your higher version of self, who's giving you those affirmations because they can see those things. They're not blinded or distraught by what the world is saying and feeling overwhelmed by what they think is right or wrong. But your higher self always knows your worth and that you're 100% worth it. Another thing is a moment of pause. I know we've talked about this before, but throughout the day, taking a moment of pause to breathe, check in with yourself, especially during times of stress. I know a lot of us were taught this growing up, that when you feel stressed, to count to 10. Instead of speaking and reacting too fast, you want to be able to take a pause, collect yourself, and make sure that how you handle yourself moving forward is a reflection of who you want to be. And I definitely think pauses are very necessary. And with those pauses comes breathing. And I'm learning how to do breath work. I'm still on my journey in my exploration phase of breath work, but I have definitely seen its benefits. And that's something that when I'm able to incorporate in the middle of the day or after, let's say, like a stressful meeting and I'm feeling overwhelmed, like I was before I started recording this podcast, of all the things that I have to do, I took a moment of pause. Instead of jumping in task to task to task, I slowed down. I gave myself a moment of pause and I allowed myself to just breathe through what I was feeling. And I reminded myself that I will be able to get it done and I just need to do one thing at a time. And so here I am recording the podcast. Another aspect of making self-compassion a daily habit and ritual and routine is to have a supportive mindset. So you want to be able to cultivate and build that mindset because it's crucial for fostering your self-compassion. You want to start with banning self-criticism. Again, this comes back to that inner voice, your inner critic, and you want to replace those self-critical thoughts with compassionate self-talk. Again, treating yourself the way a friend would treat you. So sometimes that looks like you are, challenging those critical thoughts that you may have had. For me, it's often speaking to myself in third person and saying, Mary, you know that that's not true. You know that you are so much better than that, and you know that that is not a reflection of who you are. That's self-doubt and criticism. I love speaking to myself in third person. I have no idea why, but I just know from a very young age that's what I was doing. So maybe it'll work for you. And if it does, let me know, because we can be in it together. Another thing is embracing your imperfections. This is something we obviously talked about in depth last week, but it's something, again, to focus on is recognizing that you're human, and that means having imperfections. And you want to embrace those flaws as stepping stones of growth and learning. The biggest thing about embracing imperfections for me has been looking at those mistakes or maybe shortcomings that we would naturally think as a negative, and really turning that coin and looking at the other side and finding it as a positive and a growth aspect, and realizing, okay, you know what? This is something that I learned through maybe a bit of a painful situation. I felt upset about my failure. I maybe felt like I could have done better, but now I've learned something, whether that's about myself, the situation I was in, but most importantly, I've built resilience to continue moving forward. And that is self-compassion right there. A big one, that's a hard one, is forgiving yourself. It is so important to release yourself from the burden of past mistakes by offering yourself forgiveness and understanding. You need to embrace the opportunity for growth that comes from with learning and moving forward. So similar to relationships you have, if you get into a fight with a loved one, a friend, whomever it may be, and you hold that resentment, you're always going to be carrying this like taste of negativity, and you're not going to be free flowing. The relationship's not going to get back to where it is. And maybe that's okay that the relationship won't get back to where it is, but you do need to forgive not only the other person in the relationship, but also forgive yourself for maybe your role in the relationship or how long you held on that anger or that spitefulness. It's really important to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and recognize those negative seeds that you're holding, because the longer that they're in you and that you're holding on to them, the more that they're going to grow. And that's not what we want. We only want the best harvest growing within us and around us. So you want to let go of any of that negativity, whether that's from yourself or other people, and learn to forgive. And take that moment of pause and really exhale that forgiveness and really just let it go and leave it in the past and don't look back at it. Speaking of letting go, a really big aspect of self-compassion is to let go of comparison. I know I've mentioned this many times, is just the amount of comparison that we have in today's day and age, especially with social media, the amount of different social platforms and highlight reels we see of other people's lives, that it's so easy to get caught up in comparison, but it's diminishing our self-worth and it's hindering any self-compassion that we have. And that is not what we want. One thing to be aware of is what triggers that type of comparison. So whether it is a situation, maybe social media, different content, whatever makes you feel inadequate through comparison, you really want to limit your exposure to that as much as possible, and ideally remove it from your day-to-day life. So let's say you follow someone on the internet that at first you were following them because you felt inspired by their lifestyle or the type of work that they do. But as time has passed, you start to feel that you're comparing your life to theirs, and you always feel like you're falling short. That's not a good place to be. And maybe this is someone that you know in real life that you do want to support, because yes, so much of social media is supporting one another in their individual careers. So you don't want to unfollow them. That's totally okay. There is a mute button for a reason. You can mute them so you don't see their posts, you don't see their stories. And then you can decide when you are in a better place if you want to reintroduce that back into your life. And if it's not someone that you're super close with and you feel comfortable, you unfollow, you just remove, you let that go. And same thing for negative relationships. If you find you have a friend or someone in your life that every time you spend time with them, they're just talking about all the things they're doing and accomplishing, and then you end up leaving feeling lesser than, that's not the type of friend that you want in your life. And that is definitely someone that you want to release, just truly release. It's not about breaking up and, having this big end of a friendship, but it's releasing them, and who knows what the future holds, but right now it's not serving you, and that is the best thing you can do for yourself. Another thing is to focus on your own journey. So again, when it comes to comparison, what we start to do when we're comparing is we forget about ourselves. We forget about our journey, our growth, what we've accomplished, where we're going, where we've come from. And it's so important to focus on where you want to be and investing into yourself rather than taking that energy and putting it into someone else. By putting all that energy into someone else, you're just taking it away from yourself. We only have a battery, let's say, with 100% in it. And if you are focused so much on someone else that you're giving them 60%, that means you're only left with 40%. That is so not okay. You want that 60%. Actually, you want that whole 100%. That belongs to you, and your energy should be going to you and your journey and your path. The last thing to help with comparison, and I think this is something that I remember from being young, is you want to be able to celebrate your uniqueness. You're an individual, and we all are. And we want to be able to embrace that and also recognize that everyone's path is very different. You want to celebrate your own achievements and strengths without needing to compete with anyone. And that is really, really big. We are all going through different phases of life. We all have highs and lows, and they're all happening at different times. So right now you may be in a season that feels just sticky and uncomfortable. Some might call it your flop era. I've definitely been there, and you're like, okay, this needs to end. And it feels even worse when you're looking at other people that are maybe thriving in their career or just bought a home or whatever it may be that you're trying to do. And that comparison comes in. But the reality is we all go through those seasons. Right now, someone may be in their high season and you're in your low season, but that will switch at some point. So the best thing you can do is really invest that energy. Like I said, give yourself that 100%, put it back into you so you can focus on what you're doing, so you can get to go and be and embrace the life that you want to make and create for yourself. So as I mentioned at the beginning, self-compassion is not a one-time practice. It's not a, once I figure this out, I'm cured, I'm fixed, we're all good. It is a daily journey of self-discovery and self-acceptance. So by making self-compassion a part of your daily routine, we can build a strong foundation for emotional resilience, a supportive mindset, and a liberating sense of authenticity. I love thinking about resilience because there's so much that happens in life that we cannot prepare for despite us trying, because trust me, I try so hard. And the only way that we can really embrace the highs and lows of life is to be resilient. So I'm always on a bit of a mission to build my resiliency and my ability to just go with the flow, even when sometimes that does not feel natural. But when you're resilient, you're able to do that even more so. You really want to be implementing the self-compassion on a daily. So look at how you can take these different things into your daily life. Maybe it's doing a social media detox and kind of just going through your social media over the next week and removing people that aren't adding to your life. Or it's implementing, some really positive self-talk, like having those daily affirmations, whether you write them out or you say them to yourself in the mirror, whatever it may be. And then I think it's really important to embrace each moment as a chance to practice self-compassion. So it's not going to come naturally, but every moment that you're kind of in this like limbo or stickiness, that's an opportunity and a chance for you to learn to lean on self-compassion. So you want to be retraining your brain to go from where it would normally be and into something else, which would be self-compassion, and let it rate into every aspect of your life, from your relationships to your work and beyond. Because self-compassion not only is going to benefit you, it's also going to make so many other aspects of your life more fulfilling, more full, and just more joyous in general. So I really hope that you have felt inspired this month when it comes to self-compassion, and that you, maybe like me, have seen that you need a little bit more of it in your life, and that you are going to start implementing it. And again, the daily practice is the goal. It doesn't always mean that it's going to happen, but it's something to work towards and to have set in your mind as where you want to be when it comes to self-compassion. So start small, work your way up. I am here cheering and rooting you on, practicing self-compassion on my own as you go. And just remember, you're not alone. We are truly in this together, and it's been a beautiful month. I've really enjoyed this one, and I would love to hear what you think about self-compassion, how you maybe think about it differently. I would love to hear if you've maybe changed your perspective. I know a lot of you feel comfortable DMing me. I do a lot of DM chats about the intention, so definitely feel free to do that. If it's not comfortable leaving a voice note or leaving a message on the Spotify episode, where you can actually leave your thoughts in a little blurb there. But however it feels best for you, I would love to chat with you, and stay tuned because we are going to be doing a self-love club event I think it's not until October, which is unfortunate, but it's going to be great. And I really am looking forward to everyone participating that can and just coming together and being more accepting of not only each other, but of ourselves. I think it's so easy to not accept ourselves for where we're at and who we are in this moment, and always wish that we were the next version of ourselves. But let me tell you, who you are, where you're at in this moment is absolutely where you're supposed to be. I hope you have an amazing day, and remember to love yourself first.